what's the difference between machine learning and generative AI. I think we might stick with our analogy of these colors. So we're going red, red, blue, red, red, blue, red, red, blue. Great. Machine learning has got that covered. But if we had to say red, red, blue, red, red, the color of the ocean, machine learning is now
Mm,
broken, right?
mm,
It doesn't know what an ocean is. It doesn't know what color the ocean is.
mm.
But our friend generative AI does.
You are in for such a treat. In this very special series that I recorded with my brother, who is a principal at AWS, we got into the nitty gritty of what the people, so people in learning and development, talent management, talent acquisition, all the people, what we actually need to know about AI. And we dug deep. We took some of your questions. We had almost 20 questions from my audience that we asked him. I got to ask the really stupid questions, and he really explained it in a way that just makes sense. And so you are going to really get so much from this special series. There are 5 episodes in this series, and I encourage you to listen to them all because we need to stay ahead here. We are the critical people who are going to enable everyone else to thrive in this AI integrated workplace. So enjoy, let us know what you think. And if you submit your questions, who knows? Maybe he'll come back on again. Enjoy. Okay, so I know this whole podcast is going to be about AI. So
Indeed.
when did so during your time at BNP Paribas, did AI come up? Were you working on it then already? Because I mean, it's been around since the 60s. So yeah, when was your intro into it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a really good point to make when we're talking about, artificial intelligence is that machine learning and artificial intelligence has been around for a very long time. I think that the difference now that we see is that it used to very much only exist in the playground of really big companies who could afford it, very expensive technology. Um, if you want any kind of machine learning for predicting outcomes and things like that. So yes, like even in everyday life, it's been around us for a very long time. If you think of Siri and you think of Alexa and you think of Google Maps and you think of how Netflix recommends you a movie, all of that stuff is machine learning. Any type of product recommendations that you see on shopping sites, things like that. Behind the scenes, there is machine learning and artificial intelligence that
Mm.
big companies run um, to learn, what you like, what you don't like, and try and present you with some compelling offers that hopefully translate to you doing more business with them. So at the bank, I was involved in building out the infrastructure for this capability. So certainly I was aware of it very, very long time ago.
Mhm.
I think the explosion, of course, that we saw when ChatGPT was launched, I think was that moment of hang on, that this is no longer just the playground of super rich companies who can afford to do this. Because it's very expensive from the infrastructure that you need to data scientists and all of those types of things in building out these capabilities, super expensive. Let alone you and I, who now sit here with apps on our phone that empower us with artificial intelligence. Small and medium businesses now have an opportunity to disrupt and do things that was previously locked. They were locked out of it unless you had the money. So I think that's the differentiator, and that's the exciting part about it. Also the nervous part about it, because what do I do with this power? You know, um, and I think that's where you see large institutions have got a much clearer direction, I think, on what they want to use it for,
Mhm.
where small, medium businesses are still trying to figure out what that is.
Mhm.
But I think the takeaway is that now pretty much anyone has access to this ability.
Yeah, yeah. So when did you start working with it? Like 10 plus years ago?
At least, yeah, at least. So
Yeah, okay.
it's yeah, because even in financial services, there's a lot of things that happen under the radar that may not be very noticeable by you, the customer, but they
Mm,
are taking place. So when you apply for a loan or you apply for a new product, things like that, it's always really been machine learning and artificial intelligence that's gauging the risk.
mm,
So in other words, it's going along and trying to find out as much information about you, your profile, your demographics, your habits, based on all of the different factors that make you who you are,
mm,
to score you, right? So okay, yes, we think you are reliable for this loan, or we don't.
mm,
So a long, long time ago, there was a person that would sit and try and figure that out. That moved, those types of functions moved to machine learning. And then also in large institutions, fraud detection. Hey, someone's trying to do something they shouldn't be doing. That kind of moved a lot into machine learning a very long time ago as well. So it's been around for a long time, yes.
okay. All right. So now I'm going to ask all the stupid questions, which is like my favorite thing because I say I'm in learning and development, so I put people's capability together, but I'm never the expert in the room, so I get to ask all the stupid questions. It's like my superpower. So, what is machine learning? Like in layman's terms, what is that? Is that the how AI becomes AI, or I mean, because I read Scary Smart, so I think I know everything about AI, but I really don't. So yeah, just explain layman's terms. What is it like? Machine learning AI, is it different? Is it the same? Is it like how does it? What's the relationship?
Yeah, so machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. And effectively machine learning, how do you explain it so in extremely layman's terms, like
Mhm.
a machine learning would be, say for example, you're trying to predict what color will be randomly generated next. Out of some tool or something, so it goes blue, 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 red, blue, 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 red, blue, blue, blue. What are you going to say? Red,
Red.
right?
I
So
got it
machine
right.
learning so machine learning is effectively the process of analyzing huge amounts of data to understand patterns in that data so that it can predict what's going to come next. So in order to make this very accurate, you're talking about huge and huge and huge amounts of data so that you can establish very complex patterns. So in other words, if you go blue, blue, red, blue, blue, red, blue, 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 red, blue, blue, red. Now, how many times does that occur? So now we look at that kind of pattern. You look at it millions and millions and millions of times, and the computer learns. Okay, every 10,000th time, the pattern is different. So therefore, I can predict based on those types of things.
Mm,
Um, so machine learning is very good at predicting things and categorizing things. So if you said this pen is a pen, this pen is a pen, and you showed all different types of pens, it's going to know that if it sees a pen, it can categorize it and say, okay, this is a pen.
mm,
But it can only do that if you teach it that. So if you then show it something different, it's not going to know what that is until you teach it what it is.
mm.
Does that make sense?
It does. So when we have to say how many, like, click all the boxes with a bicycle in it,
Yes,
are
yes.
you teaching the
That's a
machine? Are we teaching?
so
Because
so
I'm
in
like, it's just a bicycle. I don't know.
so those are actually designed to try and fool machines. So
Mm.
you're talking about that kind of like an access gateway. So it's
Yes,
like
like
you need to
the
prove that you're a human.
capture or something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And you'll notice that the pictures are blurry, they're not very clear, things like that. So what they're explicitly trying to do there is differentiate a machine's ability to understand what those little pictures are versus a human.
Mm.
So so for example, if the computer had never seen that traffic light in that context, it wouldn't recognize it as a traffic light, but you as a person can.
Mm.
And that kind of lends us on very nicely to generative AI. What's the difference between machine learning and generative AI? I think we might stick with our analogy of these colors. So we're
Mhm.
going red, red, blue, red, red, blue, red, red, blue. Great. Machine learning has got that covered. But if we had to say red, red, blue, red, red, the color of the ocean, machine learning is now
Mm.
broken, right?
Mm.
It doesn't know what an ocean is. It doesn't know what color the ocean is.
Mhm.
But our friend generative AI does. It knows
Mm.
that. Super powerful, right? Because of the way that it's trained. So these large language models that we use every day have pretty much been trained on every available piece of literature that the internet has. So you're talking about trillions and trillions and trillions of different data points. Um, and then it stores that information in such a way that it understands relationships between that data. So if I said the color of the ocean, the generative AI is extremely good at knowing what the next likely thing it should say would be. So if I had to say the color of the ocean, it's going to say that's likely you're talking about blue rather than
Mm.
orange or whatever
Mm.
the case is. Um, so that's where generative AI and you might have heard people saying that it's very powerful because it understands context. That's kind of what they mean. Another way of describing the way that generative AI works and how it knows these relationships is if you had to start a sentence out and you had to say the sun is, what would you say, Cans? What's your word? The sun is
Yellow.
the
Bright.
sun is yellow.
Warm. So many
There
things.
you go. All of those things are
Yeah.
correct.
Hmm.
So if you had to go into a generative AI model and say the sun is, it could come up with any of those that you've just mentioned. But if you add something to that and you say, I was dying of heat because the sun is,
Mm.
it would change the word that you're going to
Yes.
then put in there. It
I'm
wouldn't
yellow.
it wouldn't be yellow anymore. It would be something different.
Hmm.
And now generative AI knows that, and it knows very, very accurately what that next word should be based on the context. So
Mm.
in our color analogy, machine learning, it wouldn't know the color of a fire engine.
Hmm.
Um, Generative AI would know the color of a fire engine, and I think that's why it unlocks so much more potential in terms of automating processes. Is up until now, your code would have to be very specifically red or blue, red or blue,
Hmm.
red or blue.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now your code can handle things that you don't even, you can't predict,
Hmm.
but it will handle it. It will know it because of the context. So the color of a fire engine, um, the color of the ocean, the color of the sky, and everything in between. It's gonna know those things automatically, and I think that's the difference in the power of machine learning. Very prescriptive and very learning
Hmm.
based. If it hasn't seen it before, it's not going to know what to do with it. Generative AI are very different because it has a very, very good idea of what it could or should be, even if it hasn't specifically learned what you're trying to get out of it. And that's kind of the unlock.
Mm. I'm like, what was, and it doesn't need to be immigrating, but what was something really hard that you went through that you really learnt a lesson that you had to sort of readjust that just share something, that comes to mind, a
Yeah,
rejection,
absolutely.
I don't know, something hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously there's personal challenges, but we'll talk about the professional side of things. But when I worked for BNP Paribas for all those years, I worked there for an extended amount of time for a top bank in Europe, and just based on that fact alone, is I kind of found myself in a false sense of security around what I thought I knew. in the industry. But what it actually turned out was that when I so we moved to Canada, my wife Loz had a really good job offer, so I just resigned my job at BNP Paribas with the intention of finding a new job when we got here in Canada.
Mhm.
So I kind of was in a false sense of security in the sense that I thought I would arrive in Canada. I've got all these skills, like these skills are top level skills, so I'll find a job really easily. Um, I did a few interviews and they did not go very well. And I think the lesson for me very quickly was that at BNP Paribas, I worked there for so long and I was doing such prescribed things that I knew how to BNP Paribas. I didn't
Mm,
know how to the rest of the world, right? My knowledge was so siloed that again, it's that I didn't know what I didn't know. So I got out into the industry and I was interviewing, and people were asking for things that I had no idea about. And there was a real skills mismatch in terms of what I thought I knew versus, or what I thought I knew companies needed versus what they actually needed. So yeah, the interview process when I arrived in Canada was very challenging to start with. Some interviews really didn't go very well. Um, but you know, I think in terms of resilience and showing some determination, I spent kind of all night. I would study. I was just I got onto it. It's like, okay, I need to know these certain things. Like the world has moved on a little bit past the skill set that I had. There's a whole new range of things that I need to very quickly understand. So I spent 2 weeks, something like that, just of intense studying, kind of deep into the night, the early hours of the night. I got certified in AWS technology. I got certified as a solutions architect, and I was able to very quickly kind of just evolve myself, to make myself. What's the saying? I knew enough to be dangerous, um, going into interviews.
mhm,
So when I was now suddenly challenged with these questions, where 2 weeks before I had absolutely no idea how to effectively provide an answer, I got to the point where I was able to talk about those things. Um, and that opened up the door. I got a job at an ad tech company here in Canada. And that was, again, like a hockey stick in terms of learning. I had no idea ad tech, the IT that sits behind it is
mm,
frightening. It won't come as a surprise to you or your audience, but every single time you go onto any web page, any application, there's adverts popping up.
mhm,
So you imagine the world's population is doing that.
mhm,
Somewhere behind the scenes, there's really quick IT that's running, that's deciding what advert they should show you.
mhm,
That was the company that I was involved in. So we were
mhm,
managing quite literally billions and billions of IT requests per day. So yeah, the learning curve was awesome. It really put me in good standing. Um, and all of those knocks and all the things that I was forced to learn is actually what put me in a position to get the job that I have today.
mm. Wow. Okay. So, so much there I want to unpack. So, but the first one, I just want to call out. We don't need to go into it again, but I speak with a lot of people who are struggling to find work. So, a lot of people come. I run the weekly Learning and Development Lounge, and a lot of people in there are struggling. They've applied for, hundreds of jobs, go through interviews,
Yeah,
get to the final stages, don't get the job. Some of them have been applying for months, up to a year. It's really tough out there, and I'm an eternal optimist, but it's grounded in facts. Actually, is that our field is growing and needing more like of us to be strategic. And so I just love that you spend 2 weeks deep diving and knowing what you didn't know. And I just want to call that out because, and I'm going to say it in my next lounge. I'm like, this is exactly right, right? Because we're using outdated things. We don't know what we don't know. We may be relying on things that are just outdated. I say like there's some models that we use that were invented in a world that just literally doesn't exist anymore. And like we're still on
absolutely.
that, we're still using that. And it's like and your story just reminded me of that, because it's like it's not enough. Like, we need to learn, we need
Yeah.
to stay ahead of the curve. So yeah, thanks for sharing. I just wanted to call that out. All right, now the ads. I'm going to dig into that because that is
Yes.
fascinating. Because one night we had friends over, and we were chatting, and we're talking about medical tourism, because Daryl took the kids to South Africa. I couldn't go. My passport has expired, so I was stuck at home. But Daryl took the kids to South Africa, and then Haley had an operation, which we just paid cash, but which was cheaper than having the operation in America. Um,
Wow.
so we were like medical tourists. And so my friend said, oh, like, and it was so random. She was saying something like, you can go get hair implants in Turkey. Like, we weren't even talking about that. The next day, I get an Instagram story on this guy who went to Turkey to get hair implants. And I was like, what on earth?
Exactly right. I think
So
that that kind
tell,
of things happen to
tell
all of us. Yeah.
us more, because we all think, they're listening. Don't say anything. It's all listening. And I've even turned my listening off on my phone, but I still get hair implant adverts, which is something, I'm not going to take you for, but I'm not going to do that. But anyway, tell us more. Is that true? Like, let's do a fact or fiction, and like, no, a myth or truth.
So and I think that's such a funny story because I think that's happened to all of us. Like, and then suddenly something's popped up. Now, in the industry that I worked in, is we didn't have any connections to any devices that were listening to conversations and things like that. It was all based in on your activities across your devices. So in that scenario, and I don't know if this happened, but did anybody at any time Google like, hey, how would this work? Or they put something in their browser, they searched for something like that,
Mm.
because that's typically how that information surfaces and circles around and becomes an ad. So the
So did they
process
know we
is
were
that
together? Because the
it, it's
phones were together.
it's possible.
Yes,
Yes,
because
it's
I
possible.
definitely
Yeah.
didn't Google that, but maybe she did.
Yes.
Maybe my friend did.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So it's possible. It's possible. Because so behind the scenes, when I talk about all these billions and billions of data points that come into us, that's exactly the data that they're trying to
Mm,
identify. Most of it comes from device use, like exactly what you mentioned there. Where are you located? So in other words, where's your device, like physically, geographically speaking? They try and get that information from maybe from your IP address, from your phone. They certainly try and get information from your browser in terms of cookies. So whenever
mm,
you go on a website, it says, "Hey, are you good with these cookies?" The laws are changing around these things, so it's quite a fluid space. Where I know that browsers are being challenged to stop keeping that type of information
mm,
about people. But certainly up until now, there's cookies in your browser, and when you say, "Yep, you're good with it," now they know that you've looked at that site. They kind of can interpret your intent. So if you've gone onto a shop and you've looked at some TVs, you're going to get spammed with TV adverts in your in your Instagram. It kind of goes full circle.
mhm, mhm,
So long story short is they are very much deliberately looking for information from wherever they can find it about the consumer to offer you something that they think is valuable to you.
mhm,
That's pretty much the whole connection there. And again, there's not some people sitting there making these decisions. These are all
mm,
automated based
mm.
on machine learning
Okay.
and artificial intelligence. Absolutely, yeah. So they try and I think they try and build out a profile, and you see this on social media. If you do nothing but scroll for recipes, they're going to show you many recipes because they
Mm,
think that, hey, this person is interested in this based on the knowledge that we have. And I think also when you talk about the ecosystem is now, Facebook and Instagram are the same owner. They know
mhm,
each other well.
mhm,
YouTube and your Chrome browser,
Mm,
that's Google.
mm,
So, kind of wherever you are, the information flows like from even one app to another app and things like that.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and that's kind of how they make these connections.
Okay, so when a site asks you, do you accept the cookies? What's your answer?
I allow it because the scenario you've spoken about doesn't necessarily freak me out. I think it's like on an individual basis.
Mm,
So, in other words, let's put it to you differently. If I was desperate for a hair transplant and I got presented with some options that could work for me, I'd be interested in that. So,
mhm,
if I
mhm,
didn't know that existed before, I think that's okay. But everyone's different. Everyone has a preference
mhm.
and not. And I think companies do need to operate within those spaces. Where's the line between a good customer experience where you offering them something that will be valuable to them versus just a bit creepy and there's a line. There's a line there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think the line is when they're listening to me. That's my line. Like, I'm like, I
Yeah,
didn't
that could
Google
be. Yeah.
this. And there's another line. So, like, I think more people find out about affairs this way because, like, if Daryl Googles a tent, I get the ad and I'm like, Daryl, we don't need another tent. And
So
like,
true.
I don't think I have the right to know what my husband is Googling. Like, like, like I can
Yeah,
joke about it because, there's trust and all that stuff, but like, there are different relationships, and so I don't know.
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
feel a little bit creepy when I know like Daryl's shoes and Daryl's tents, and I'm like, we no more tents, we're done.
Yeah, I think that machine learning and things can go a step further because I had a similar experience with a TV. I was looking for a new TV, so I was Googling TVs and I was looking for TVs. So I was being presented with TV ads, which I think is useful. I found a TV. I bought a TV, but for 6 months afterwards, I kept on
Mm,
getting
mm,
TV ads. So we need
mm.
a switch that says, "Okay, done.
Oh my
I
gosh.
bought the TV.
I'm
I bought
like,
it.
I'm
I'm
sold.
good
You
now."
got me. You got me.
Yeah.
Because yes,
Stop with
I did
those
the
ads.
same
Yeah, let's
actually.
move
Like,
on. Yeah.
yeah, I was looking for a car and then I actually bought a car through an ad because I wasn't looking at that brand. And so I was like, oh no, this is really nice. I didn't think about this. And so I landed up buying the car. But then as well, it's like, I'm done. I
I've got
got
it. I've
it.
got it. I'm finished now.
Yes,
Yeah, just
yes,
stop with the ads. Yeah.
yeah. We need to get there.
But
Like, did you
but
buy
yeah,
this thing? Yes, I'm
the
done.
um the listening thing is quite interesting. So I'm not aware of any specific technologies that do that, but I am aware of many stories like what you've just kind of mentioned that
Mm,
people talk about something really random and then next thing you're seeing it in your on your devices. So
mm.
it's a fascinating one.
Yeah,
Maybe we
Siri and
can deep dive for
Alexa.
another day.
I know they exist. I swear. Okay, so that's just going to stay on the shelf of like mysteries.
Yeah, yeah,
One day
conspiracies.
we'll have to redo this, and then we'll
Yeah.
bust the mysteries. Um, okay, so now let's get back to a couple other things. So I said the learning thing. So I'm just writing. So cookies, you say yes. So yes, because I
I
also
say
find that
yes.
good
Yeah.
because then it's like less mission. You like, yes, I want
Yeah.
these things. So yeah,
And,
okay.
and the way that I think about it is that
Mhm,
regardless of whatever happens, they're going to show you ads.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
so I would prefer to see something that might even be loosely linked to me
mhm,
that I might find useful rather than something completely random that's just
mm.
has
Yes,
no
yes,
relevance.
yes. Although
So
that takes
I'm
a lot of
okay with it.
self-control not to buy all those things. So
Well,
it's
you
like,
bought a car, right?
ooh, I needed a car.
We're not even looking for a car. Okay,
No,
you
well, I
did.
was
Okay,
looking for a
perfect.
car. I just wasn't looking for
The
that
system
brand.
works.
Yes. Yes, I Googled one car and then just had like car, 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 story, story, story. I was like, okay, you learned. All right, but now I want to chat about echo chambers because
Yes.
I say, like, even in LinkedIn, and it's way more than LinkedIn, but like LinkedIn, you follow certain people, and so you're hearing the same voices and seeing the same things, and it's like same, same, same. And so yeah, I go on and on about like especially like learning and development, we need to break out of our own bubble because we need to
Yeah.
learn from other people. Like we need to learn from finance teams and marketing teams and all the things. Like we really need to pop our own bubble. So tell me about like the echo chamber. Does that exist, first of all, or is that a mystery or like a myth? And then how do you break out of it if you're saying yes to cookies, if it's learning you so well and now you're like just in this little ball?
Yeah, so it kind of lends itself very much from the conversation we just had. It is real and it does happen. So the algorithms that are doing this are that they're trying to show you things that they know you're interested in. And it happens like one thing I've noticed is it tends to happen much quicker now than it ever has before. So my experience is just like little anecdotes. Is I might be on Instagram, something like that, and I'll have to. I just want to make my coffee, and some ad will come up. I'm not even watching it. I've got or someone talking about a topic will come up. I'm not interested in it. It's got I wouldn't linger on it, but I've just put my phone over there to make the coffee.
Mm,
And then I've come back and I've carried on scrolling, and then suddenly I start seeing loads of stuff relating to that topic that I'm actually not interested in. I just so happened to have lingered on that content for a time. So I think that they're trying to do it much quicker because it's in their interests to keep you on the platform.
mhm,
So that's kind of why that echo chamber comes about, is because they want to keep you on there as long as they possibly can. And their best way to do that is to just tell you what you want to hear effectively.
mhm, mhm,
Whereas if you get challenging views and things like that, you might not enjoy the experience as much.
mhm,
Um, but we kind of the way that I would think about it in the space that you're operating is I would move away even from the socials and things like that, and just redirect that slightly towards generative AI, because you mentioned there that in your role you need to understand the different perspectives from all the different personas that exist in your corporation.
mhm,
How can I build a compelling product for all of these different people and meet their needs? And personally, I find generative AI to be really effective for this. A big mistake that a lot of people make with generative AI is they'll open their tool of choice and they will ask for answers to things that they want very prescriptively. They'll say, I want you create this or write that or create a table, write a report, something like that. Where a much better entry point into using the AI is to tell it who you are, tell it what you would like to do, and then use it to challenge you. Because one thing about a generative AI is, and it varies on model types, but some of them are really agreeable, overly agreeable. If I said
mhm,
I wanted to start a business of ferrying people to Saturn on Saturdays, it will probably come up and say, "Great idea, let's dive in. Here's how we're going to help you
mhm.
achieve this next week," and so it's super agreeable. It wants to please, like
Is
for
that my
lack of
chat
a
GPT, Sally?
there you go. They for whatever it is, you are the greatest. All your ideas are phenomenal.
Because
So
they
so let's
are,
no, no, you aside, I'm talking about everyone else.
everyone. Okay, got it.
But
Just wanted to clarify.
an extremely good use of generative AI, and we touched on this earlier, is if you don't know what you don't know, you can't build a product that meets those needs.
Mhm,
Generative AI is good at doing that. So here's my plan. Um, act as the head of marketing. What would they say about this? Act as the head of sales,
mhm.
the head of technology, whatever. What would they think of this plan? And
Okay.
you can even go so far as to give it a persona and say, be a detractor, be someone who
Yeah.
thinks very critically to tell me what's wrong with this plan. It might give you 10 things that it thinks people would say. A couple of them, at least a couple of them, in my experience, will resonate with you, and you'll go, "Oh, I didn't actually think of it from
Mhm,
that point of view." So, of course, this doesn't mimic the exact people that you'll be dealing with, but it's very good at giving you an idea to plug your own gaps. So if you're going to put forward a pitch or put forward something to somebody who you need to get on board with you, it's much better to use AI to imagine all the ways that they will think your idea is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Get a narrative
Mm-hmm.
around it, get your talk around that, because even then it's going to round your idea out. Because I
Mm.
promise you, there is something in that idea that could use improving.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's kind of what I do with it is use it as a detractor. And oftentimes I'll write in the prompt there, do not just agree with what I say.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what's wrong with this. Act critically.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a super picky person,
Mm-hmm.
you want the top 1% of the best of this.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to say about what I've just produced?
Yeah.
And you're going to get some really good insights. Some of it won't be useful. A little bit of it will be useful, but that little bit of usefulness will propel you forward. I think that's the thing.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and it's that little bit better every time. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So the act as is an actual thing because I was like, are
Yes.
people just overdoing this on Instagram? Act as blah blah blah. I'm like, act as the world's best copyright. Write me something.
Yeah.
So okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's very
That is
helpful.
a yeah, that's a valid technique. And again, the
Mm,
reason
mm,
for it
mm.
is because of its broad scope of knowledge.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we
So you
spoke
want to
about
almost give
machine.
it a
Exactly.
character,
You're just
like
focusing. Yeah, you're
you're this
focusing its
person.
purpose.
Yes. Okay. I like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Because like
Um,
back with our machine learning is it only knows what it knows, where generative AI knows a lot about a
mm,
lot.
mhm.
So if you just ask a very general question, you'll get a very general answer. But if you say act as, all you're really doing is saying this is very specifically what I'm interested in. So
Mhm.
forget that you know all about the
Yeah.
planets in the galaxy. Here we're talking about learning and development. So this is our focus. That's
Mhm.
effectively what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. And what is your tool of choice? Let's give people like narrow it in. What's your open AI? Like, I mean, I use ChatGPT. What
Yeah.
do you use?
So this might be surprising, might not be, but I use pretty much all of them. Yeah, so I work for Amazon. We've got our own products, but I say that's more like on the nerdy side, the technical side of things,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
use our products deeper than a user interface. That's
Yeah.
where you're kind of connecting things on the data level rather than a user interface level. But
Hmm.
on my phone, I've got Anthropic Claude, I've got ChatGPT, I've got Gemini from Google. I've got Perplexity. I've got image generation AI tools. I've got music generation AI tools, which I have a great amount of fun with. So I don't use a single tool.
Hmm.
And I think even professionally, if I've got an idea about something or I've got a report that I'm writing something like that in the public, like if it's public investigation that I'm doing,
Hmm.
I will run it through at least two of the
Hmm.
leading large language models because almost to fact check each other. So I'll ask a question here and say, give me the output. I'll take that exact output and put it somewhere else and go, is this accurate? Go and fact check this for me. And invariably, you get one or two little things where it says broadly this is correct. However, in this context, it might not be correct. And then even then, you are as a person, I've learned something. But
Hmm.
more importantly, if I'm going to now use that information to give it to somebody else or to deliver some outcome, now I'm aware of a gap that was there that is now closed. So I use them to fact check each other.
Mm. Okay. Interesting. I I've used all of those except the very first one you mentioned. I've never actually even heard of that one.
And Anthropic, so
Yeah.
Anthropic Claude, yeah, they've got models called Claude, is their famous models.
Oh,
And
okay.
again, it's probably closer to my circles. Very good at software development, but
Mm.
also really good at writing in a natural way. It gets a lot of attention for good writing and code development.
Okay. So I don't need to do code. That's not
Not
my
yet.
not my zone of genius, let's put it that way. Okay, so next we're going to talk about hallucinations. What on earth is that? Is ChatGPT taking mushrooms. I am learning so much from these episodes. I hope you are too. Make sure you catch all 5 of them, because us, the people who support people in organizations, we need to stay ahead.